It's absolutely apptacular. The Subject Cinema Android app. Everything you need to be a rabid Subject Cinema fan. Subject Cinema, 3-Minute Weekend, Tuesday Digidex, and Front Row 5 and 10. All right at your fingertips and available instantly. Plus, email and voicemail links, Facebook and Twitter hookups, Patreon support specials, and more is coming real soon. Don't just listen, app it. The all-in-one Subject Cinema podcast app. Android version available now at Google Play or on PNR Network websites. Amazon and iPhone apps coming soon. Don't delay. Download today.
Blueberry. This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Are you going to do this again? We do this every year. This is not the right time of year.
It is for me.
Ugh.
It's the one time of the year when everything is geared toward me and the people that think like me, and I know you're out there.
Oh, you're not going to quit, are you?
Nope.
We're starting our annual Halloween programs on our season premiere of kicking off Premiere Week for PNR Networks and a lot more. We got some passings. We've got a few other special shows to do.
Please.
If you'll stop that.
I will, I promise.
I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
It's time for Scream Screens.
Here on Subject Cinema. It's October! Screams!
Celebrating a decade of film podcasting. Lasting out of B-Town, USA. You're tuned into Subject Cinema with T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown.
Directive.
Oh, behave. Yeah.
I volunteer as tribute.
Suppose you run your business and let me run mine. Here's looking at you, kid.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome T.C. and Kim.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Are you happy now? You know, will you sit down and stop doing the Snoopy happy dance? Honestly.
Just a minute! One more turn!
Welcome to Subject Cinema's Screen Screams. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown. Hold on. I gotta get my...
Subject Cinema number 584, day and date, October 1st, 2017. We're glad you're here with us.
I'm getting way too old.
We've had
for
the
this.
last month a little bit of getting ready for our premiere week. All this week, except Saturday.
Yep.
All new shows every day this week. We hope you'll check them out. We've got today's Subject Cinema. Tomorrow will be, of course, do we have something for Monday? I'd forgotten. Do we have something for Monday? Not yet. I'm sorry. There's nothing tomorrow. Tuesday Digidex season premiere. Wednesday, Catastrophe Vortex will be back. Thursday, Front Row 5 and 10. And Friday, 3-Minute Weekend. And then a week from Saturday. And there'll be new stuff from Grotto and Cavebabble. And a week from Saturday, Platinum Rose's Garden will return. And we got a new program coming in January. We're not going to talk about it yet, but it's going to be fun. So the last month has been kind of crazy. We haven't really been here since a month ago today.
No.
How was your month?
Well, we went on vacation, which we told
Thank you all for listening to the incredibly long, rambling vacation show.
Very silly. We needed the time off. We needed to recharge our batteries.
And you know what? We need the time off again.
Yep.
After just 2 weeks back to work.
Yep. But
how pathetic is that?
We had a wonderful time down on Cape Cod. which we do every year. Thank you so much.
Think of sand dunes and salty air.
And if you remember that song, you're old. We want to thank everybody.
It's a tradition. I play it every time we go across the Sagamore Bridge.
Yep, he makes me do it too.
Yep.
We want to thank everybody down in Hyannis and around that area that were so nice to us. Everyone was, as always, was super wonderful and friendly. We had a lot of fun, went to a lot of great places.
And you heard all that on the 2.5 hour magnum opus we had on a couple weeks ago.
Some yummy food. And then we come home, and then a week later, they get hit with the remnants of one of the hurricanes that have been bashing the hell out of the East Coast the last couple of weeks.
Jose. Yeah, we got Jose up here.
Yeah, and we're watching.
It wasn't really here. It was off the coast, but it gave us 2 days of wind and rain. And then yesterday, I don't know where that one came from. Was that from Maria? Yesterday morning, I woke up, and I'm sitting here working on stuff at my desk, and I hear thunder, and I'm looking at the radar, and I'm like, holy cow, there's this like gigantic... massive thunderstorm that dropped 4 inches of rain in 40 minutes in Lynn, which is just north of here.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy cow.
And he comes in to talk to me. He's like, were you worried about the thunder and lightning? Me. What?
Yeah. Normally she wakes up during that stuff, but she slept right through it. It's like, we're talking 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I slept like the dead. I heard one roll of...
Oh, thank you for that one.
Well, it's appropriate.
And how appropriate.
It's appropriate. I heard one rumble of thunder, and I was like, I just kind of opened one eye and went, huh. And went right back to sleep. Apparently after that, there was like, the skies just opened up and it went insane. We would like to, of course, extend all of our prayers and thoughts and good vibes and stuff to the people of Puerto Rico who are still trying to deal with everything they went through dealing with the hurricane.
Well, also Florida and Houston,
Texas,
which all got hit by massive
else.
Hurricanes the last month.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you, and
hopefully there won't be any more. Although there's still 2 more months of hurricane season to go, so hopefully there won't be any more bad ones.
Our thoughts and prayers are with everybody that's been affected, and
So far, as far as this month goes, it's screens time. Everything we're going to do this month is going to have something to do, or at least most of it's going to have something to do with horror films or thrillers or stuff that we do every year. We're doing a new show called Multivisions, a new segment called Multivisions, which is our feature for this year, as we look at 5 stories that have had multiple versions told on the big screen or on the small screen. And we're going to start that in a few minutes here.
Yep.
And we're also going to be doing some classic thrillers that Kim has been catching on TCM and a few other things here and there.
Obviously, the best. I mean, you talk about how October and it's the fall's coming, especially in New England. Fall is a really beautiful time. I am not a spring summer person. I am a fall winter person. I don't like to sweat. And since the state bird of Massachusetts is the mosquito,
That is not true.
I really don't like summer.
That is not true. And more mosquitoes are out in the fall than in the summer.
Really?
Yeah.
Fall in New England is beautiful. The trees change color, and it's all just beautiful, and I love it. But Halloween and, October and Halloween is really special to me because, it's candy, 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 horror movies, horror movies, horror movies, candy, 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 horror movies, horror movies, horror movies.
Okay.
In other words,
are you done listening to yourself talk here?
In other words, I am in my happy place.
This is opening is taking forever.
Sorry. Okay.
Let's get into our new segment. We're going to start it off with a very veritable classic and talk about several different versions of that person. We're calling this segment...
If we can find him.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
That might give you a hint.
Yeah, we're calling this segment Multivisions.
Bandages right up to the top of his head, all round his ears.
Flora's worried about Griffin.
I had a terrible feeling last night. I felt he was in desperate trouble.
He meddled in things men should leave alone. Not the slightest clue. That's where the clues are. He wasn't leaving anything to chance. There must be a way back. God knows there's a way back.
Multivisions kicks off with a character that became legendary as part of the Universal Monster series, but actually started as a novella.
Yes.
And has done several since. There's been other versions and variants, and mutations of it ever since.
And gender-flipped versions. And
That's what I meant by
so
mutations.
Forth,
The Invisible Man. You
Yes.
want to tell us a little bit about this?
The Invisible Man started life and came into the public imagination as a novella written by H.G. Wells, the author of a lot of other great science fiction like The Island of Dr. Moreau and The Time Machine, a lot of great works like that. It was a serial, actually, at first, in a magazine called Pearson's Weekly in 1897, and was also published that year as a full-length novel. Very thin novel, I guess. The story of the Invisible Man is about a man named Griffin. In the film that people know the best, his full name is given as Jack Griffin. He is a scientist who has found the formula to turn someone, or at first to turn a lab animal, invisible. The problem is that while it actually works, and I guess, hey, yay for science and all that stuff like that, as it turns out, this drug has one teeny-weeny little side effect. It drives the people who use it crazy. That's the side effect part. There's the side effect and there's the problem. The side effect is the fact that it drives people crazy. The problem is, oh, by the way, he doesn't have a way to turn himself back. So, that's obviously not a good thing. Now, the problem is the fact that you have this insane person, and goodness knows we have enough insane people running around as it is, but now you've got an insane, invisible person. Now, think about the kind of damage that a person who is not visible and who is now bat guano crazy can cause. This is obviously not a good thing. And it's something that once they started making films, people thought, hey, this is a great idea for a film. And there's, been several versions of the Invisible Man's story done. Obviously, I think the best known version was the version that was, as TC mentioned, was the Universal version done in 1933 under the title The Invisible Man. The story starts it starts in a village, a tiny village in England, in Sussex. It's a little place called Iping, or Iping. I don't know how you say it.
Iping. It
is Iping?
Yep.
There's no, oh, never mind.
I think.
I would think there'd be two P's if it's Iping, but I don't know. It's a dark, snowy night as opposed to a dark, stormy night. And if you get that joke, you're old. And while the people in the inn are just having their usual pint and talking and gossip and stuff like that, it's the kind of where everybody knows your name kind of a place, the door bangs open, and there's this guy.
Norm!
No, it's not Norm.
Well, you said everybody knows your name.
Well, I did, but it's not Norm. Okay. It's really not Norm. There's a guy standing there who is completely swathed in bandages, and it's not Prince Karis. And he has dark goggles on, and he looks like he's been in a horrible accident. He goes to the landlord and demands that he wants a room. The innkeeper, the innkeeper's wife is a little bit like, it's not that time of the year for rooms. We don't have any ready. He's very insistent that he needs a room. He's been in an accident. He needs rest, blah, blah, blah. So they let him stay there. The thing is, the staying there turns into a bit of a prolonged stay, and after a while, the people are finally like, he needs to go because A, he's not paying his rent, and B, he's doing something weird up in his room. There's chemical burns on the rugs and stuff like that, and it's just, they're basically like, you have to go. This does not sit well with the stranger, who we find out is Dr. Jack Griffin. And he shows these people why he's all bandaged up. It turns out it's because he's invisible. He tried this drug. He found this drug called monocaine and tried it on himself and made himself invisible without making an antidote for said monocaine, and also didn't realize that monocaine drives you nuts.
Mm-hmm.
So, now you've got a guy who is convinced that he can rule the world as an insane, invisible man. He has a fiancée named Flora, and he has friends and other people and co-workers out there trying to stop him. And he causes a lot of damage before he finally is stopped, including murders, a train derailment, and quite a lot of insanity and chaos. He winds up being shot as the police and the townspeople are hunting for him, and he's fatally shot. He's taken to a hospital, and they can't operate to save him because they can't see him. It's really kind of hard to operate on somebody when you're like, cut. Oh, I think he might have needed that. Obviously you can't operate on something that you can't see. And he is lying in bed and dying. And as he's dying, apparently the shock of being shot actually brought him back to sanity, because he manages to tell Flora, who is beside him and completely, horrified and sad, that, he's tampered with things that he should have not touched, the whole he tampered in God's domain kind of thing. And he dies. And it's a little bit more like...
The car shot him!
Private joke. Oh my gosh, I don't believe you went there. After he dies, in a really good scene, his body starts becoming visible again, starting with the nerves. I don't remember. It's like starting with the nerves and the organs and the skeleton and the skin and everything like that, and then we see Claude Rains, and he's dead. And the film ends.
Yeah. This particular production of it starred Claude Rains, Gloria Stewart as Flora, William Harrigan as Dr. Arthur Kemp, Henry Travers as Dr. Cranley, Una O'Connor as the naggy old biddy that ran the little boarding house there, Jenny Hall, and Forrest Harvey as her husband Herbert. Dudley Diggs as Chief Detective, and E.E. Clive as Constable Jaffers, and appearances in minor roles by Dwight Fry, John Carradine, and Walter Brennan. This is, I guess,
You could pretty much throw a rock at any Universal horror movie from the 30s, and you're going to hit Dwight Fry.
Oh, yeah, he's in all
somewhere.
of them. He has 2 featured roles, and then he has smaller parts.
Everywhere else, you could just throw a rock, bonk. Ow, hi, Dwight. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Directed by James Whale, I think this is one of those films that, you hear this film stands the test of time, that film stands the test of time, blah, blah, blah. I really think that this is one of those films that really deserves that title. Because you look at the special effects for this film, this was 1933.
Yeah.
And you look at the special effects when Griffin disrobes in front of the prying eyes of the people at the inn. It's really well done. Astoundingly well done for the time. And I think it holds up to now, to be perfectly honest. What do you think?
Yes, it's an excellent film. The special effects are terrific. And for the time, you really couldn't get any better. They were difficult to do.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's you do it on a blue screen or a green screen. You just put somebody in a costume the same color.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a floating head or a floating arm or whatever. They couldn't do it back then that way. Claude Rains had to wear a black velvet suit, and he was claustrophobic and couldn't really handle having the mask on a lot of the times. Yeah,
I do not blame him at all.
I'm sure that wasn't terribly breathable through.
No,
like the today's are. They're just made of lycra, and you can breathe through it.
Not to mention being hot.
Yeah,
studio lights are hot as is. Could you imagine being under studio lights in velvet? Ugh, that is not comfortable.
In black velvet.
Not comfortable. It's one of my favorite horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think it's a great film. I also think it's really interesting when you think about the fact that, I mean, this is just where my mind goes. The fact that this was 1933. You know more about this kind of stuff than I do. Was the Hays Code in effect then?
Yes.
So they got this movie out there, this movie where basically the guy's running around naked throughout the whole movie, and they got that past the Hays Code. That's a definite bravo from me. I think that's great. I think about stuff like that. I can't help it.
It actually made the 10 best films of the year from the New York Times, which is really saying a lot when you consider nowadays we kind of think of it as just, it's another one of the Universal horror films. But back then, those were considered major box office hits.
I mean, the stuff that it's funny because the stuff that we look at now that we remember as, stuff we saw in Saturday morning horror movies and stuff like that. At one point, that was a big deal. That was something that people had actually never, honest to blog, seen before. That you have to put yourself in the time frame of when the film came out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There has obviously been a lot of talk lately about the fact that the Invisible Man will be coming back, or allegedly coming back, to the big screen sometime in the next few years with the dark universe that Universal is attempting. And I do mean attempting.
Attempting, because the first two films bombed.
To push on us. Well, they
rebooted it with Dracula, Dracula Untold, was that the name of it? Was supposed to be the start of it. It bombed. So, no, that's not going to be part of it. We're going to start it with The Mummy. It bombed. So it's okay. Now Bride of Frankenstein is the beginning of it now, according to this. And I'm like, okay.
The last thing I heard about it was that Johnny Depp was supposed to be in
he signed a star in it, yeah.
I'm kind of I don't know if they do this. I really hope they set it back in the 30s. I think that would work better because when they tried doing the Invisible Man story, modern day, and they called it Hollow Man, that bombed. That was...
No, Hollow Man wasn't a terrible bomb. It was not as big a hit as they'd hoped, but it wasn't a complete
Well, considering it was a complete misogynistic, I've seen it, and I'm like, do we really need 900 gallons of blood in this movie? Is that really necessary? So anyway.
Now, there have also been other films, not just remakes of the film, there's also been sequels and other stories offside.
Well, once a film is a hit, people seem to think this whole sequel thing is a new thing. I hate to be the one to break it to you folks. It isn't. The second something made money back in the 30s, people jumped on that bandwagon just as fast as they do now.
There were actually 5 of the original Invisible Man films that were officially part of the set from Universal. After The Invisible Man came The Invisible Man Returns with Vincent Price.
Which took 7 years. That didn't come out till 1940. The Invisible Man Returns is a lie because it's not the same character.
But he's still invisible.
He's still invisible, but it's not the same Invisible Man. Actually, it is the brother of the... It's not
his friend is the brother of the Claude Rains character.
I'm sorry, I mixed myself up. The Invisible Man in The Invisible Man Returns is Sir Geoffrey Radcliffe, who is going to be sentenced. He has been given the death sentence for the murder of his brother, which he is innocent of. And he winds up getting help from Dr. Frank Griffin, who is the brother of Dr. Jack Griffin. And the whole invisible formula gets brought up again as Sir Geoffrey tries to clear his name. One of the very, very, I could probably count them on one hand, rare times you saw Vincent Price in a horror movie where he wasn't on the side of the bad guys. Because
he was by the end of the film in Mindset.
Well, not by the end of the film.
Not at the very, very end, but he was. He was. Yeah, he was losing his mind too.
He was losing his marbles. Yeah, he was losing his marbles. But unlike The Invisible Man Returns actually has a happy ending. Because they wind up doing I believe it's a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
And that saves his life and also makes him visible again and makes him not crazy.
Yeah.
And he's also found the real killer of his brother, so everything ends all swell and neat.
Price was he only appeared in the film for 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the time it was just his disembodied voice.
Yep.
And this was his first horror film,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Next up in the list of these films, and you say we've seen this. I don't remember seeing this.
I swear we've seen it.
The Invisible Woman.
Yes. The Invisible Woman was a comedy, as opposed to a straight-out science fiction story with horror overtones, like the first two Invisible Man films. The whole story is about this woman named Kitty Carroll who winds up becoming a guinea pig for a scientist who, Professor Gibbs, who's this kind of potty old dude, that is trying to create an invisibility ray as opposed to a drug. And she winds up being his guinea pig, and poofda, she's invisible.
We have seen
Yes.
this, yeah. I had to go through the storyline. I'm like, I don't remember seeing this, but yeah, we have.
Faster than you can say alakazam huzzah, she's invisible, but she's not going to go nuts. So there's that positive to that.
Yeah.
And it's a wacky hijinks kind of a movie, which also, when you think about it, that means this woman's running around naked on screen in the 40s.
Here we go.
Wow.
Could we please? Family show.
I'm just saying, Okay, so that's 3 out of 5.
The
What's
sequel
next?
to Invisible Woman was called Invisible Agent. I don't think either one of us have
No,
seen
I haven't
this.
seen that one.
And it again is John Hall, Peter Lorre, Sir Cedric Hardwicke.
Who was in The Invisible Man Returns.
But not in the same character.
No.
Iona Massey, Alfred Brassman. It was a war picture set during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, The Invisible Man's Revenge in 1944, which starred John Carradine as a mad scientist who tested his experiment on actor John Hall, an escaped fugitive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember this either.
I don't remember that one as myself. Also, I mean, this is kind of a cheat, and, it is what it is. Since we're talking about the character of the Invisible Man, he actually also has a voice cameo in the comedy Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, when Bud and Lou are fleeing from the monsters at the end of the film, and they're commenting on all the crazy adventures they've had. It turns out they have another passenger in the boat, who introduces himself as the Invisible Man, and they get scared and jump out as wacky music plays in the background. And that was also voiced by Vincent Price.
Mm-hmm.
So
there were a lot of other. I mean, there's been 2 different television series called The Invisible Man. They had nothing to do with the original show, really. There was a TV pilot called The Invisible Woman with Bob Denver in the 1980s, where he was the scientist that had come up with making this shapely model-style secret agent type thing.
Right.
It was goofy.
Like you mentioned, there was The Invisible Man. There was several versions of The Invisible Man. There was one in 1958 from Britain.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
There was one in 1975.
That was the David McCallum version, which was terrible.
David McCallum. There was an adaptation done by the BBC in 1984, which I haven't seen, to be perfectly honest with you.
No.
But I'm sure if the BBC did it, it probably was pretty good. There was the Sci-Fi Channel did a version in 2000 that didn't last terribly long. It did last 2 seasons.
That's better than the McCallum version, which lasted 13 weeks. So
there's a French series called The Invisible Man. It was an animated show.
That must be me. That must be super easy. Yeah, the Invisible Man is the main character. That means you only have to animate part of the frame.
Think of all the amount of money you'd
save.
Yeah,
you're saving a ton of money on animation with
That's
that.
crazy.
What a cop
Wow,
out. Oh my God.
The character of the Invisible Man has also appeared in other places. If not necessarily Jack Griffin, but other people using the whole moniker, the Invisible Man.
Well, yeah, that's nice that none of the show, well, at least the McCallum show didn't use that.
No,
so.
but there was a Invisible Man in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, who wasn't a very nice guy, as it turned out. I don't know if he was like that before he turned invisible, or if,
Well, according to the H.G. Wells, who was not terribly, he didn't mind the movie, but he was upset that they changed his genius in the film to just being a researcher. Mm-hmm. But his genius in his book was an amoral a-hole out for conquering the world. I mean, that's not the same thing.
No, it's not.
So,
well, he didn't start out like that. I thought he just started.
No, the Wells thing was like that from the beginning, according to what I've read.
Oh, okay.
He started as a megalomaniac who got this ability and wanted to use it to take over the world.
Oh, yeah, and that worked out really well for him.
We're going to take over the world, Pinky. How come Ray never tried invisibility?
You sure he didn't?
No, not really. There's so many of them. I didn't see all of the Pinky in the Brain.
Well,
either.
the whole concept of the Invisible Man and the whole idea behind it's the whole tampering in God's domain thing again. It's the whole, and they keep bringing it up in the films. The whole idea of people doing something they going places they shouldn't go and messing with nature and messing with all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while, they actually did do an Abbott and Costello film that was we saw on Svengoolie, Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man in 1951, which had absolutely no basis on anything, that had been seen previously.
No, and that Invisible Man was not a bad character. He was like the Vincent Price thing, wasn't he? Hiding out from something.
He was a boxer that I think was on the run or something like that. He needed to
trying
prove
to
his
clear
innocence.
his name of something.
Yeah,
right.
he needed
Yeah,
to prove his innocence.
Right.
On the gender flip side of things, obviously, not everybody who has invisibility powers is bat guano insane. Every once in a while, you wind into it. I mean, obviously, not everybody who has had the title of the Invisible Man is crazy either, or a villain. David McCallum's character in the Invisible Man series was a good guy. And you've got in comics and on the animated stuff and on the big screen, we've had the Invisible Girl, who is now known as the Invisible Woman, thank you very much, Sue Storm of the Fantastic Four, who became invisible because of being exposed to cosmic rays, which I still don't know how that would work, but whatever. And she can turn invisible and also manipulate air to make invisible shields and stuff like that. So, it's the whole invisibility thing is something that everybody talks about that when you're a little kid and you talk about what kind of superpowers you would like. I think invisibility comes up a lot because, let's face it, it's pretty neat. It's a pretty cool power to have. Not as useful as other things because people talk about I'd like to be invisible. I'm like, well, that would be great. Except if you're invisible, you should probably also want to be intangible because if you're just invisible, people can still smack into you.
Yeah, but if you're intangible, then you can't do anything.
Well, you can spy on people.
Yeah, but you can't touch anything.
You can't touch anything. No. But it beats standing there and listening, and then all of a sudden somebody turns around and smacks right into you, and they're like, "Hey, ow, what's that?" And then your cover's blown.
It's Harry Potter with his invisibility cloak.
Yeah, it's a fun idea though, and the whole now that movies have more special effects and all kinds of things that they can do to make the whole invisibility effect. We make it. I hope nobody gets the idea that we want this whole dark universe concept to fail. I don't.
I haven't seen any of them because, in all honesty, we haven't been interested in them. I'm not particularly interested in the idea of Johnny Depp playing the Invisible Man either. I got to be honest.
That's the first one. I tell a lie. I'm actually interested in The Bride of Frankenstein simply because Javier Bardem is supposed to be playing the monster.
He is, yeah.
And goodness knows, after that debacle that was Mother, he needs something that's going to be...
Critically acclaimed debacle that was Mother.
Yeah, that got a 0 on... I think if they could give that movie minuses on Rotten Tomatoes, they would.
No, the critics love it.
The people, yeah.
The people have been the one that turned on it.
Yeah.
And critics are telling the people, you're full of it, you should love this movie. And I'm like, no.
And the people are going, screw you, don't tell us what we should like. But I really want to see what they would do with a big screen version of The Invisible Man with today's special effects.
Yeah.
I would like to see it be a period piece. That's just
I don't see how they'd work
opinion.
it into the Universal
if somebody's looking back on something that happened.
Yeah, but if they want that character, the idea is to eventually have all the characters cross over like Marvel and DC. So that's not going to be possible if they do that.
Yeah, I suppose not.
Although I don't think they're going to have anybody from Dracula or Mummy in these other movies either.
Well, considering that Dracula and the Mummy are both immortal, I don't really,
Next week on Subject Cinema, we'll have another classic horror/thriller story and the various versions of it over the years. And if you'd like to know more about this or you want to comment on it, don't forget to send us a line, subjectcinema@PNRNetworks.com.
Real movies for real people. Subject Cinema.
PNR Network shows depend on our listeners. It's you that makes us who we are. Help us bring you all the best we can. Become a Patreon patron. Donations start at just $2 a month, and the more patrons we can get, the more we'll be able to offer. You can get great perks, plus exclusive blogs and podcasts available only for being a patron as well. It's absolutely fantastic. So please, become a Patreon patron today. We need you. Patreon.com/PNR Networks.
If you're looking for great films, well, that's okay. You'll like us anyway. Subject Cinema.
David.
Like a brand burned deep into her conscience. One word, one thought dominating her entire existence.
Kim's been watching a lot of stuff on Turner Classics lately, which is good because they have no commercials. You can see the whole movie and nothing. That's great.
And you find out really cool stuff.
And we found, we do. Although I miss Robert Osborne, but it's like
I do too. But
there's
Ben is cool.
Ben's cool. Ben Mankiewicz is cool.
Ben.
Yeah. This week, Haunted Classics, and it's not really a Halloween film as you said. It's more of a noir film, but it has a very psychologically thriller aspect to it.
Yeah.
Joan Crawford, Van Heflin, 1947, Possessed.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about this.
Okay. Possessed begins on an early morning in any street you can think of in Los Angeles. And we see a woman walking down the street.
Any street I can think of in Los Angeles? I can think of lots of streets in Los Angeles.
Well, it's just like your average street. It's just like your average street on an average morning in Los Angeles in the 40s. Nothing spectacular, nothing unusual. And you see this woman walking down the street in kind of a long shot, and we see her standing there, and we see her walking. The thing is, as she's walking, you can tell something's wrong. The way she's walking, there's almost, not to throw a supernatural aspect into something where it's not there, there's almost kind of a zombie-esque-ness to her gait. Mm-hmm. It's not that stiff, but it's like she's walking, but somebody else is making her walk. It's like that.
Right.
And there's obviously something wrong with this woman. She is not responding to anyone around her other than whenever she sees a man, she reaches out to them and she calls them David. And naturally, nobody she runs into is named David or knows who the hell she is. She manages to make it into a diner where people finally notice there's something wrong with this woman, and she is taken to a hospital. While she is in the hospital, the doctors there try and find out who she is and what got her to the state that she is in, which is a not good state at all. It turns out her name is Louise Howell, and we get to see her life and what brought her to the sorry state she's in now as the doctors administer medication to get her to talk because she's completely, almost totally catatonic. Uh-huh. Under the medication, she tells her story. Louise was a woman who was working as a live-in nurse for another woman who was the wife of a wealthy man named Dean Graham. The wife, who was bedridden and very difficult to deal with, constantly accusing her husband of cheating on her and just very unpleasant person. The thing is, Louise is in love with somebody, but it's not the husband. We're not going there yet. She is actually in love with the neighbor, a gentleman named David. Now, the thing is, it started off as a lighthearted affair, at least on David's part. Louise doesn't see it that way. Louise is hinting around, well, no, actually not really hinting around. It's more like beating him over the head with the idea that she would like to make things a little more permanent. And David is of the opinion that, in a word, no. He doesn't want to get married to Louise or anybody right now. He's footloose and fancy-free, and also getting pretty damn sick and tired of the fact that Louise is smothering him. She is obsessed with him to the point of really, we're like 2 steps away from boiling a rabbit in a pot here, kind of obsession. I was going to say,
this sounds very Fatal Attraction-y.
Oh, yeah.
It's obviously where they got their inspiration from.
Well, as it turns out, stuff goes wrong extremely quickly when Dean's wife winds up drowning herself. And it's...
How does one drown themselves? I would think that the fear factor would take over before it actually happened.
Well, she drowned herself somehow.
Or did she?
Well, the official ruling is that she killed herself.
Okay.
Louise, thankfully, has an alibi. She was in town when it happened. And the family moves to Washington, D.C., and Louise winds up staying with the family to care for the children. There are 2 children who were thankfully away at school when their mom took the plunge. A young son named Wynn and a daughter named Carol. So the family goes to live in Washington, and as things happen, Dean winds up caring about Louise, and they wind up getting married. And you can tell that Louise is kind of like, okay, I'll marry you. It's not like, oh, yes, I'll marry you, and we'll be happily ever after cartoon.
It's like, okay, I'll marry you. It's convenient.
No, she cares about Dean. She does care about him, but she's not in love with him.
Right.
She's in love with David. If your idea of love is, you can't see anybody else but me, and if you do, I'm going to kill myself, and, talking horribly to somebody and then being like, I didn't mean it, no, wait, come back, I'll do whatever you want, blah, blah. I mean, the way this woman debases herself for this man, me sitting there as a
modern woman.
As a person that grew up at the end of the sexual revolution, I'm sitting there going, good God, woman, get yourself together.
No, stand by your man for you. But
I'm just like, good God, don't you understand when no means no? It's very weird to see that on the woman's side of things for a change, but it does happen.
Yep.
And things go on from there, and unfortunately, David tweaks onto the fact that Carol is Carol, the daughter, who is Louise's stepdaughter now. Carol is no longer a little girl. She's blossomed into quite the honey, and David's going, say. And that...
Ew, creepy.
Well,
isn't he like in his 40s?
He's older.
Yeah.
Not that much. It's not like, ew, it's older, but we're not at the, what will the neighbors think level yet.
Oh, okay.
And things from there go downhill faster than the Jamaican bobsled team. And we have madness and accusations and things culminating in murder. Dun, dun, dun!
Thank you, Dramatic Chipmunk. The stars of this film, Joan Crawford as Louise Howell, Van Heflin as David Sutton, Raymond Massey, and... Geraldine Brooks as the Grahams, Dean and Carol.
Well, Carol's the daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we never actually saw the wife. We just heard her. We never saw
Jacob
her.
Gempel as the concert pianist. Stanley Ridges as Dr. Willard. Moroni Olson as Dr. Ames. John Ridgely as the chief investigator. And Erskine Sanford as Dr. Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
Joan said this was the most difficult role she'd ever played.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
I really think Possessed is a film that, I mean, lots of people talk about Joan Crawford and her film career. We're going to leave the personal stuff out for right now. When they talk about Joan Crawford as an actress, people automatically think of films like Mildred Pierce or Whatever Happened to Baby Jane or Unfortunately Trog or things like that. And that's all.
I think Baby Jane is what comes to mind most for everybody.
Well, if you're a fan of a certain type of film, it's going to be Baby Jane.
Right.
If you're a more classic film person, it's probably going to be Mildred Pierce.
Yeah.
But this film is one that I really think people should take a look at as film fans. And if you're a fan of Joan Crawford and not seen this film, you should definitely check it out. I find it very interesting, the title of the film, Possessed. Now, normally when people see a film with a title like that, you're automatically going to assume that it's got something to do with the supernatural, demonic possession, that kind of a thing, because we're kind of conditioned toward that as a society nowadays. I find that interesting because this film, for 1947, this film is very sensitive to the topic of mental illness and obsession, because this woman is obviously extremely mentally ill. Louise, besides, being, this whole clingy personality, she has hysteria issues, she has narcissism issues, she has auditory and extremely vivid, visual hallucinations, including one scene that I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, I just got Black Swanned again. Seriously, there's one part of this film that I was like, what just happened? Oh my God. Wait a minute. What the? Really? Well, now don't I feel dumb? But
overall, you thought it was a good film.
I think it's a great film. But the reason I bring up the Possessed thing is because way back when people were still ignorant about this kind of stuff, people thought that people with mental illness, they thought they were possessed. They literally thought people were possessed by evil spirits or demons or whatever.
Well, who's to say they weren't? I mean, you never know.
Well, you never know, but for the most part, you'd like to think that not everybody that was, running around, being mentally ill was
Right.
someone that was possessed by a demon. I don't think there's that many demons, to be honest with you. But people used to, but thank goodness that psychology's come a long way and psychiatry's come a long way since back then, because the whole way they cured people, Dr. Evil quotes, back then was to drill holes into their head to let the evil spirits out. Now, I'm not a doctor and I don't even play one on TV, but that sounds like a horrible idea. That sounds like a really good way to, I don't know, kill somebody? But Possessed is a really good film. It's on Turner Classic Movies. You might be able to check it out on your local on-demand or maybe Netflix or Amazon Prime, I don't know. If you get a chance, check it out. It really is good, and it does show Joan Crawford in a role that I can understand why it would be demanding, because playing crazy is not easy, because goodness knows I've been playing sane for a very long time.
Welcome to the soundtrack of your life. You're listening to Subject Cinema with TC Kirkham and Kim Brown.
Want to know what new films are coming out this weekend? Hi, I'm TC Kirkham of Subject Cinema, inviting you to check out 3 Minute Weekend, our weekly roundup of all the new films hitting U.S. theaters each weekend. We've got the 411 on all the new blockbusters, indies, and video on-demand choices for you each week. 3 Minute Weekend, every Friday morning from Subject Cinema and eCinemaOne.com, a PNRNetworks podcast powered by Libsyn. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast service.
We've got the films you're looking for. Subject Cinema with TC and Kim.
That music means it's time for the return of the 13 Report. All this month we're going to do classic Mystery Science Theater 3000 movies that center around horror films, or, it's Halloween time. And for some reason, Kim insisted we kick it off with the giant Gila monster. God, why did we have to sit through this again? Yes, you said we'd never seen it, but we had.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
No, I mean the Misty version.
I know. I was wrong. Sorry. So let's just talk quick about the film. We've talked about this film before because it's terrible.
It's one of those films produced by Ken Curtis, who played Festus on Gunsmoke for years, and also produced the awful Killer Shrews.
Yeah, gave the world the Killer Shrews, which he actually starred in. Thanks, Ken, if we haven't thanked you enough for that.
He co-starred in it. The real star was Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane.
The real star was James Best. Don't be rude.
Anyway.
1959's The Giant Gila Monster which is played by a beaded lizard we'd like to bring up.
Yeah, it's not a real Gila monster.
It's not even, they couldn't even get a proper Gila monster. That's ridiculous. Those things don't run that fast. How could they not get an actual Gila monster?
I think Gila monsters are way more poisonous than beaded lizards, but I might be wrong.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Sorry about the stretching out on the G there, by the way. I had something kind of swallow of soda caught in the back of my throat.
The giant Gila monster.
No, it's the giant Gila monster. The story begins in a small town where two teenagers are doing what teenagers do in a car. They're necking. The car is attacked by something, which we don't see a lot of, and the teenagers are promptly dispatched. This becomes a running theme throughout the film, as a giant unseen whatever keeps knocking people off. And one of the people that we find out that one of the members of this couple is the male member of it, Pat Wheeler, is actually the son of a local bigwig who is pressuring the sheriff to find out what happened to his kid. The blame, the pushy gentleman, Mr. Wheeler, would like to focus the blame on a young man named Chase Winstead, who is the teen lead in this.
I gotta be honest, I would not call any of these kids teens. I think they're...
Oh, no.
No, I mean, I don't think they're supposed to be. I think they're supposed to be tweeners where they're out of high school but not really doing college stuff.
Yeah.
Like maybe 20, 21. Because if they're trying to pass for teenagers, they have serious Miles Teller syndrome.
Yeah, nobody talks about high school, so maybe they are. I don't know. Unlike a lot of other kinds of movies like this, Chase actually isn't a juvenile delinquent and has a good relationship with the local sheriff, Sheriff Jeff. Chase is like this kind of all-around American kid. You know, he's actually kind of a Marty Stew for this movie. He's a little too perfect. You know, he races cars really well.
He works as a mechanic to raise money for his sister's treatment because she has to have braces.
She has to have braces on her legs.
Leg braces.
Yeah,
not braces on the teeth.
And he sings all these, inspirational songs to cheer her up, and he's got this hot French exchange student girlfriend. And are we sure this wasn't written by a fanfic writer? Before you get mad, I write fanfic too. Don't yell at me. But for the most part, we only see the Gila monster in shots of the claw coming down toward the camera. Toward the end of the movie, we actually do see shots of the giant Gila monster, and it's not terribly impressive. It's actually not impressive at all. It's an actual lizard that they put on a soundstage with little teeny buildings and the little teeny cars, and it's shite. A Gila monster is actually poisonous. It is one of the only two lizards that are poisonous in the United States. The other one being the beaded lizard. But you have to really, from what I've heard anyway, you have to really, 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 really agitate a Gila monster for them to bite you in the wild.
Yeah.
So having this thing all of a sudden grow to be 70 feet long and be this rampaging monster makes no damn sense.
It would still it would be hungry. It's not used to being hungry.
It would be hungry, I suppose, but I don't see why it would look at a car and go, "Hey, I can eat that."
It's not. It's looking at the people in the car because it's used to preying on animals.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll give you that much. It all culminates in a sock hop. Go ask your parents, or your grandparents. Where the Gila monster makes an appearance because apparently giant mutated animals are attracted to terrible music. I don't know. And everything culminates in an explosion with Chase facing down the Gila monster in his car stuffed with nitroglycerin. Who will survive?
It's stuffed with nitroglycerin. You don't need much of that
You
stuff
don't
to
really
blow
need a
up.
lot. No, but he's got like 2 things of it, doesn't
Yeah.
he? That's a lot of nitroglycerin.
With Don Sullivan as Chase, Lisa Simone as Lisa, Fred Graham as Sheriff Jeff. Ooh. Shug Fisher as comic relief Old Man Harris. Bob Thompson as Mr. Wheeler. the aforementioned pushy rich guy. Janice Stone as Missy. Ken Knox as Steamroller Smith, the DJ. Gay McClendon as Mom Winstead, his Chase's mother. Plus Don Flouty, Cecil Hunt, Stormy Meadows, Howard Ware, and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Good
grief,
oh
this
my
movie
God.
sucks. It doesn't suck as bad as some giant monster movies we've seen where basically...
It's not Earth versus the Spider.
Oh, hell no. At
or
least,
the Creeping Terror.
No, it is not Earth versus the Spider because at least the monster stays the same size throughout the film.
True, yeah.
And it's not the Creeping Terror because people actually have lines. And
they had lines in that. It's just dipped, the guy that did it, the creepy guy that did it, lost the audio track.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
They actually have lines that they're speaking, and it's not all over narration, But the music's just as crappy.
Yes.
It's not a good film, but we've seen much worse. The
acting in this film is better than most of these kind of films, too. I thought the guy that played Chase, Don Sullivan, was really good.
He was.
There's a lot of knee stuff in this, too. Chase puts his knee up and on everything.
Yeah.
And it's like,
there's
good
a lot of
God,
odd
who came up with this?
There's a lot of odd stances in this movie. You're like, was this... You're kind of wondering if this film was... put together by the same people that used to make those old catalogs where people stand in these angles that are completely unnatural. No human being stands like that, but people are in the magazines with these big smiles and pointing off camera and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like that.
The film appeared. The film was shot in Dallas, Texas, produced by Gordon McClendon and Ken Curtis, who at the time owned a drive-in theater chain in Dallas and around the area. And they shot it back to back with The Killer Shrews. This did get national release, however, unlike a lot of films shot down there. And the gentleman playing Steamroller Smith was an actual disc jockey working at popular radio stations in the area at the time.
Mm-hmm. The Misty for this is this was from obviously
season 4. Joel was the.
It's a Joel.
And I don't remember some of the segments, so maybe we hadn't seen the Misty version of it.
I don't remember either. The prologue involved Joel creating a thing with 2 heads out of Crow and Servo. It goes about as well as you think.
I would have remembered that. We hadn't seen that one.
It goes about as well as you think it's going to go. In other words, not very. The invention exchange turns out that it doesn't go as quickly as it should because Frank announces that Dr. Clayton Forrester has died. That actually isn't accurate either, and Dr. F's really pissed at Frank because of it. Joel has made a radio that only picks up channels from old movies and sitcoms. Like when you see a radio in a TV show and they're talking, it's obviously not a real radio station. It picks up stuff like that. Why you'd want that? I don't know.
That might actually be a playoff of something I saw on a Dark 5 episode the other day, but I'll talk to you about that later.
The Mads invention is the Renaissance Festival punching bags. To which I give you guys a hearty FU. I like going to Ren fairs.
I like Ren fairs too. They're a lot of fun.
I have a great time at Ren fairs.
King Richard's is awesome.
It's one of the few places I can actually buy sharp things, or I'm allowed to handle sharp things. And certain people don't give me a hard time. Captain Buzzkill over here. Segment 2.
Oh well.
Segment 2 involves Joel mocking the fact that there's a part of the film that's the teen hangout, which looks more like they just cobbled it together from a barbershop set, and it's all that whole thing with the bots not going along with it, and it completely falls to pieces.
And Joel having a male hissy fit, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Joel is proof. Men have hissy fits. I now have it on proof. I have proof on video. Men have hissy fits.
We've known that since Arn Anderson had one on WCW way back.
Yeah, but you're always saying men don't have hissy fits.
Men don't have hissy fits generally, and they don't giggle, they chortle. Anyway, let's move on.
The whole set literally falls down thanks to Gypsy. Segment 3 involves the whole idea of the... I don't know how to put this and not sound insensitive to those of our viewers who have overcome alcoholism or have to deal with a family member.
It talks about Old Man Harris.
Well, it's talking about the whole trope of the lovable drunk.
Right.
You know, the whole kind of crazy Guggenheim kind of character, the whole Dean Martin thing where he would be, like, pretend to be perpetually sloshed. You know, Otis the Town drunk, that kind. At least I'm assuming it was pretending.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, I don't remember them bringing up Foster Brooks, considering that was his whole shtick.
That was his whole shtick.
That was his whole shtick. And if you
and he was good at it too.
And if you know who I'm talking about, you're as old as we are.
Would you stop saying that? I'm gonna hurt you in a minute.
Segment 4 is Servo on Cinema. Which is talking about the whole thing that TC mentioned earlier, the whole leg up in the air, strange kind of Captain Morgan. Maybe that's where they got the idea for the Captain Morgan stance.
I don't know.
On the bottles that they had in this film. There are a lot of people sticking their leg up. Somebody had some real fetish issues, I think. And segment 5 is the guys, the bots and Joel, rehearsing a song, and it doesn't go very well as you'd expect. I liked this one. I thought they had some really good segments.
Oh, the segments were a riot. It's a shame they had to like surround such a crappy movie. Although, like I said, in this one, at least the acting isn't terribly bad by most of them, and I genuinely like the Chase character, the Sheriff Jeff character. I even like the drunk guy, Old Man Harris. He's funny. The kids all like him. So, you know. Yeah,
they do. Because, well, it's like, it really is like in the segment they do about that, they ask a question, when did public intoxication stop being funny? And you think about it and you're like, why was that ever funny? You know,
because it was. We've seen enough of it on World's Dumbest over the years.
Of course, the one thing we both liked about this episode was one thing that at the time we first saw it, we were like, but we found out later how wrong we were.
I think this was the first time we saw it. I don't remember any of the segments.
I'm okay. Well,
I don't know.
There's a joke where they're doing this whole Hava Lagila, done to the tune of Hava Nagila. And there was a point in time where I would have been like, oh my gosh, they shouldn't do that. That's a sacred song. And I was like, nope.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We found out the truth
Find out the truth about that song in Hava Nagila, the movie. It's a great little watch.
It's a really fun little movie.
Somewhere.
If you've never seen it, you really should. But this is MST3K episode 402, The Giant Gila Monster, Joel and the Bots. You really can't go wrong.
Next week, another classic Deep 13 film looks at more monsters on the 13 Report.
Push the button, TC.
No film is too good or too bad for us. This is Subject Cinema.
All right, Kristen, I am so excited that you've decided to do a podcast with me, but what are we going to do a podcast about? There's so many other movie podcasts. We got to do something original.
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of Disney movies. What about something like that?
That's just kid stuff. What do we want to do that for?
Did you know that The Avengers is a Disney movie? Or that Pulp Fiction is a Disney movie?
Pulp Fiction is not a Disney movie.
It's technically owned by Miramax, which is part of Disney.
We are still going to talk about the Disney animated movies, though, right?
I thought you said that was kid stuff.
Well, you know, I've got 2 kids. I got to be a good dad and stuff.
So be sure to subscribe to the Walt Sent Me podcast, where we discuss the various subsidiaries of the Walt Disney Studios, including the animated movies.
It's available on iTunes, Podomatic, and wherever you find great podcasts. And I swear, it's not kid stuff.
All movies, all the time. Subject Cinema.
Come in, darling. I've been expecting you. Oh, come in. Don't be afraid. I won't bite, and you're bound to have a good time. Or my name isn't Elvira.
One other thing we're doing this month on Subject Cinema as we segue into Screen Screams is saluting some of the horror hosts around the world as of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the hostess with the mostest this week is Elvira,
Yes.
Mistress of the Dark, played by Cassandra Peterson.
Oh, yes. Elvira...
You were a lot more... I never got to see her show because we didn't get it in Ohio, and the new one aired here at 3:30 in the morning or something like that.
When I was a teenager, I was lucky enough that I got to watch Elvira's Movie Macabre on Channel 68 on Saturday nights, and it ran from, I think, 11 to 1 or 10 to midnight or something like that.
And you think some of the crap on Mystery Science Theater 3000 is crap?
Oh.
Wow, Elvira's really scraping the bottom of the barrel for most of her stuff.
Elvira's stuff is scraping under the barrel. You lift up the barrel, and there's the movies that she ran right there. And Elvira's Movie Macabre ran for 5 seasons, and she ran some of the most terrible films, and the fact that she and her other crew members had to watch them, I'm assuming, should have nominated them for knighthood.
I don't know that she had to. They might have all.
Well, she had to watch them because she had to write. They had to do the jokes.
Yeah,
so,
but she can just read the jokes. I don't think she was involved with the writing of it. I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. I loved that show. I loved Elvira. I still love Elvira.
I love Elvira too.
I had
She's
a
wicked
huge
hilarious.
Elvira poster on my wall, which really confused my parents. But I confused my parents, so hooray!
Wasn't that a Misty?
Huh?
I confused
That was
my
I
parents?
accused my parents.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
Anyway, as we mentioned, the films that Elvira ran and commented on, she didn't have to sit there and riff them like Mike and...
No, she was just an on-camera host similar to some of the other ones we've seen in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That we'll talk about in future shows.
She had some really funny jokes that were really not appropriate for any time frame, but they were awesome. You know, she made a career out of Elvira. Cassandra Peterson had been a bit part actress and done just a few things as herself. And when she landed this role, it turned her into a star overnight. They did 5 seasons of the original show. They did a feature film. Yes, they did
called Elvira,
Mistress of the Dark, which I saw at the theater, and I thought it was funny as hell.
And then there was she kept playing the character in various.
She still plays
appearances.
the character.
Well, she didn't for a couple years. They were looking for a new Elvira, and she was involved with that, but it never went anywhere. And then she came back to the role in 2013 with 13 new episodes of Movie Macabre.
And she's also appeared, as you mentioned, she's had some uncredited parts in other films, including a James Bond film.
Wow.
She began her career as a dancer, and considering the fact that she is an incredibly gorgeous woman, I'm not surprised. Because of course
I think it would be a bit hard for her to dance.
What?
Anything.
Why?
Have you looked at her cleavage?
Yeah.
It would be a bit difficult to do anything major with that kind of cleavage.
Hello, there's these things called push-up bras, And
Yes.
not that nature hasn't endowed her well, to begin with, and she was a dancer in 1971's Diamonds Are Forever.
Ah.
And she appeared in one part that I was like, I remember seeing this and going, like squinting, going, I know that woman. She was a biker mama in 1985's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. In the scene in the bar, when he's dancing, everybody knows that's part of the scene where he's dancing to Tequila. But I remember that scene, and I remember squinting and being like, hey.
Yeah, they were friends, weren't they?
Yeah,
she did it like as a favor.
I believe so.
Do you have a list of the films that she did?
Yes, I do.
So, just give us some of the crap that she had to sit through. I'm pretty sure we probably sat through some of it.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some of these films other places, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, I have to be honest, some of them I actually love. One of them being the Comedy of Terrors, which is, it's one of my...
That's one of the Poe films,
No,
isn't it?
no, it's not a Poe. It is an AIP, but it's a comedy. It's a horror comedy starring Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Basil Rathbone, Boris Karloff. It's about the undertakers that resort to killing people to drum up business.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a Poe.
Okay.
That's just
okay.
weird.
Right.
I think it was the first horror blaxploitation film, Blackula.
I remember seeing Comedy of Horrors on the CBS late movie when I was about 6.
Films like also she ran films like Pigs, which is about a guy that breeds man-eating pigs.
Wonderful.
Because people do that. The Incredible Two-Headed Transplant Rattlers, one of your favorite movies.
No.
Yeah. Whoever Slew Auntie Roo, part of the psychobilly
Oh, wow.
genre.
She ran that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's not very nice.
Why?
Well, I've seen parts of it with Shelley Winters and Mark Lester, and it was not bad.
Yeah. It's not great.
No, it's not great. But
the Doomsday Machine, which we saw thanks to
good God, you poor
Cinematic
woman.
Titanic.
Didn't she also run the other movie from Cinematic Titanic, the Brain movie?
Brain of Blood? I haven't found
because that was
one yet.
terrible too.
Yeah, that was really bad.
Yeah.
But she actually, some of the films that she ran were also cult classics. Things like Willard.
Mm-hmm.
And also some really that was
one movie she mentions. Oh, some of them are a cult classic. Willard. Oh, and then okay.
Well, a lot of them weren't.
Yeah.
That was the first place I ever heard of the Blind Dead films. The Blind Dead films were these films from Europe dealing with these skeletal Knight Templars that would go around, and they were blind because they were corpses, and they would hone in on people's heartbeats, and that's how they'd find them and kill them. One of the other films that I remember her running was this film called Alien Contamination. It was this Italian film that was obviously such a ripoff of Alien. I'm like, how did they get this anywhere and not get sued? Because this was one of the most blatant ripoffs in the history of ever.
Great White.
Well, yeah.
Also an Italian.
Yeah,
film.
and that got yanked.
Yeah, it
so,
did.
Elvira did come back to the Movie Macabre title series in 2010.
Was it that far back? I thought it was 2013. Okay.
No, 2010. It came back to syndication with public domain films like Night of the Living Dead, Ega. Ugh.
Oh, poor woman.
Ugh. How anyone would have to sit through that movie again, I don't know. And she was...
Quite a few people sat through it live with the current cast of Mystery Science Theater 3000 this summer.
She's appeared in a lot of other places as well. In the Elvira character, she had her own series of DC Comics for a while. Because let's face it, a character like Elvira would be really fun to draw. She's just great. She's sexy and she knows it. She's an empowering. I think she's a very empowering character.
And she kept the horror host alive in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
When all of them were starting to fade away. Of course, a lot of them there were locals. There's never really been a national horror host except for Vampira, Elvira, and now Svengoolie. There's not very many.
Was Vampira national?
Vampira was national,
Really?
and so was Elvira in syndication. And Sven is well, Van Mack was for a while, but not. It was so sporadically syndicated that I don't know.
Unfortunately, yeah. Which is a shame,
he was
'cause
good,
Wolfman
and
Mac had a
now
great
Sven is
show.
national on MeTV.
Yeah.
So
every Saturday night.
and he's been around for ages. We'll talk more about him later on this month.
But Elvira is just, I mean, she is one of those people, I would love to meet her. Just to say, there's very few people in the world I would be like, gosh, I wish I was like you. She's one of them.
The character, not the actress.
No, I'm sure I'd love to be like Cassandra Peterson, too,
true,
because she's an awesome person. She's smart and funny, and, she knew Elvis, so that makes her automatically cool. So, two thumbs up to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
If you got a host you'd like to hear us talk about, let us know who they are and where we can find them. Subject Cinema at PNRNetworks.com.
The best movies! Subject Cinema!
Want to know what top titles from film and TV are hitting home video this week? Hi, I'm TC Kirkham of Subject Cinema, inviting you to check out Tuesday Digidex, our weekly roundup of all the new home video releases in the U.S. each week. Whether it's DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming you're looking for, we've got it covered. Tuesday Digidex, every Tuesday morning, from Subject Cinema at eCinemaOne.com, a PNRNetworks podcast powered by Libsyn. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast service.
Your every man's film school. This is Subject Cinema.
It's been a really long summer and a really long September, and we've lost a lot of people over the last few weeks, and we want to make sure that we have time to give you some of those people we've passed in September. Actress and acting teacher Elizabeth Kemp passed away on September 1st. She was 65. She was on the TV series Love of Life for several years back in the 1970s. It was a soap opera. But best known now for some of her big students who included Bradley Cooper, Hugh Jackman, and as recently as Lady Gaga.
Yep.
She was 65. And classic comedian and satirist Shelley Berman passed away also on September 1st. He was 92. Berman, well known to people our age, not so much to the younger crowd. He was a political satirist and a writer.
He referred to himself as a sit-down comedian as opposed to a stand-up comedian.
He was on Curb Your Enthusiasm a couple times too. He had Alzheimer's, which is a real shame. September 2nd, Walter Becker from Steely Dan passed away. Walter was the other half of the band with Donald Fagen. On September 5th, character actor Hansford Rowe passed away. He's in tons of stuff over the years, but he's probably best known as Mark Singer's stepfather in the original miniseries V from 1984. He's collaborating with the Visitors, and that's a no-no. Right. September 8th, we lost a couple of country superstars. Troy Gentry of Montgomery Gentry was killed in a helicopter crash. He was 50. And singer-songwriter Don Williams passed away of emphysema. He was 78. Williams best known for songs like Tulsa Time, I Believe in You, and You're My Best Friend over the years. Also on September 8th, actor Blake Herron passed away. Blake was best known as a child actor in the film Shiloh. He died of unknown causes at this time. They were unable to revive him. He had a history of drug abuse, but had been clean, they thought, for several years. Comic fans lost a legend on September 10th. Len Wein passed away, the creator of Wolverine, and a writer and editor on the Swamp Thing comics and Watchmen. He was 69. And American entertainment executive and uber super big guy sports producer Don Allmeyer passed away. He was 72.
Yep.
On September 11th, actor Mark Lamura passed away, best known for his role in All My Children over the years. He was 68. Frank Vincent, character actor that appeared usually as a mafia guy or a tough guy in shows like The Sopranos, Goodfellas. He was in Raging Bull, a number of other things.
Yep.
Complications after heart surgery, or during heart surgery, actually. He was 80. September 14th brought a passing of Grant Hart. Grant was an American singer and songwriter. More recently had become the drummer for the legendary Minneapolis-based band Husker Du, but has also done stuff before he joined that band. He was 56. September 15th, American cinema lost a legend in Harry Dean Stanton. Harry Dean, one of the most loved character actors of all time.
Yep.
His brand new film, final film, Lucky, just opened last weekend. I remember him. I first saw him in Where the Lilies Bloom in 1975, and I've ever since then. He made a cameo in Age of Ultron, right?
No, actually,
it was the first Avengers movie.
He made his debut in the Marvel movie universe in the Avengers as the security guard that finds Bruce Banner.
I couldn't remember which two of the films it was.
After one of his Hulk outs. So he finds a nude Bruce Banner and gives him some tips about how to live life a little better. He will definitely be missed.
September 16th and 17th saw us lose some sports figures. On the 16th, Penny Chenery died. If you don't know that name, you're not a fan of the film Secretariat. Diane Lane played Penny Chenery in that film. She was the driving force behind Secretariat. She was 95. And Ted Christopher was killed in a plane crash in New Hampshire, actually. It was all over the local news. Ted was an American race car driver with NASCAR and a big star. And on September 17th, legendary wrestler, manager, commentator Bobby Heenan passed away. Yeah. You were so distraught.
I was really upset. I mean, Bobby Heenan did his job well, which is he drove me nuts. A lot of people might not know that Bobby had started as a wrestler. Most people knew him as a manager, a heel manager. He referred to himself as the Brain. The fans and most of the face wrestlers referred to him as the Weasel.
Yeah.
And he was a really funny guy. We have one of his books. He wrote a couple of autobiographies. He came back from mouth cancer, from having...
He's beat cancer 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And this time he
was
just couldn't do it.
He was a really courageous man and funny guy, and definitely will be missed.
On September 18th, Mark Selby passed away. Mark is a well-known musician. Although he's had his own stuff, he's probably best known for being a frequent collaborator of young blues performer Kenny Wayne Shepherd from the time Kenny just started at 16 or 15 on through today. He was 56. On September 19th, Bernie Casey passed away. Bernie, one of the most recognizable African-American stars in the early days, starring in blaxploitation films and then jumping to regular stuff and making appearances in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Revenge of the Nerds. He also had played football for the San Francisco 49ers for a while. He was 78. And Jake LaMotta passed away. Jake, the inspiration for Raging Bull, after a boxing career, turning into a club owner and comedian.
Yes.
He died from pneumonia at 95. On September 25th, the names are not going to be that familiar to our American fans, but to our fans in the UK, they will be. They lost 3 classic television actors all on the same day. Tony Booth, best known for his roles as the Archie Bunker prototype in Till Death Do Us Part. Actually, no, he was he was not the prototype. He was Meathead on that original show. He played the part that later would be played in America by Rob Reiner. He also appeared on Coronation Street and The Contender. He was 85. Actress Elizabeth Dawn passed away at age 77. She had been on Coronation Street for 30 plus years.
Wow.
And had phased herself out as she became more and more ill over the years. And Bobby Nutt also appeared on Coronation Street and a number of other shows, was best known for his role on Emmerdale. He was 71. He passed away of a heart attack. September 27th, Anne Jeffries passed away. Character actress, probably best known for her long-running role on General Hospital. But she was a movie star and a TV star. She starred in the Dick Tracy movies in the 1930s and 40s, and also appeared on Topper in the 1950s.
Yep.
And Hef. What can you say about Hugh Hefner? He was 91. That man lived the life most men dream of.
Yep.
The founder of Playboy magazine, businessman, and reality television actor, and all-around funny guy when he was on the talk show circuit.
AKA, to most men, probably the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet.
Well, who wouldn't be? You lived the last 40 years of your life lounging around in your bathrobe.
Yeah.
With beautiful, buxom women by your side.
Surrounded by these buxom young ladies, and it's funny how you seem to age, but they don't.
Yep. Benjamin Whitbrow passed away on September 28th. He was a character actor best known in Britain for all kinds of movies and television roles, but American audiences are most familiar with him as Fowler in the Nick Park movie Chicken Run,
yes, the
from
voice
2000.
Of the grumpy rooster Fowler. He was really, really funny.
And finally, on September 30th, a man that a lot of people I've read today are just calling perhaps the nicest person, one of the nicest people to ever walk the planet. Game show host and producer Monty Hall passed away. He was 96. Monty, still affiliated all these years later. My Entire Life, Let's Make a Deal, premiered in 1963 and on ABC. It would eventually be on ABC, NBC, and finally on CBS in a new format with Wayne Brady. But Hall remained a producer on the new show and made several on-camera appearances from time to time, would come on and help Wayne and the other gentleman, I've forgotten his name, Michael, the sidekick.
And
that.
a lot of people can't say that their name got slipped into the world of role-playing games. It's spelled differently, but the term Monty Hall has become a pretty well-known term in the realms of those of us of the 20-sided dice crowd.
Yeah.
It's a less than flattering term for a Dungeons & Dragons or any other RPG campaign where you don't have to do a whole lot, but you wind up getting lots of treasure, experience points, stuff like that. That's referred to as a Monty Hall campaign, and that came from him.
Yeah, Hall was a legend in the game show industry and one of the nicest guys in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Married to his wife for almost 70 years. She passed away just a few months ago. And, of course, he had several children, one of whom is Joanna Gleason, who was in both television, movies, and most known for Broadway. He was 96. We invite all of our fans to pay one final respect to all these performers we lost in September and invite them to take a final bow with us.
The last reel.
One of our most expected movies of the fall has gotten a boost.
Yes.
From the San Sebastian Film Festival.
Yes. The James Franco-helmed Disaster Artist, which is a film that we've been waiting for quite a while.
I've been waiting for it more than you have.
Yeah, yes, you have.
Oh, Kim, you're tearing me apart!
Stop it. A look at what happened during the filming of The Room, one of, if not the worst films ever made in the history of ever.
I thought we agreed that Birdemic was worse.
I think it is,
yeah.
But the Disaster Artist won the Golden Shell at the San Sebastian Film Festival, the 65th San Sebastian Film Festival. That's the highest award you can win at the event, which is the film event, the highest profile film event in the Spanish-speaking part of the world.
Yep.
And when I saw this story, I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. That's really interesting. Wait a minute. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just had an epiphany. That means probably, I'm assuming, people from Spain have seen The Room. What did we ever do to
Not
Spain?
Not necessarily. The movie's being set up to be able to be seen by people who haven't seen it yet.
I realize that, but I can't see anybody seeing The Disaster Artist without seeing The Room first. It's not gonna have the same impact.
No, but it might have interest, and then that will interest them in seeing The Room and see just how great a job James does.
Maybe.
Because if you haven't seen the trailer, you need to go see the trailer. The full trailer that shows more about... Because the movie is actually only a third about The Room. The rest of it's about their friendship, his and Greg Sestero.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a little bit more in-depth than people are expecting. If you've read Greg's book, then you know what to expect. If you haven't read Greg's book, then you're going in... And if you go in thinking it's just about The Room, you might be a little disappointed. But Franco is spot on. It's terrifying how spot on he is.
It really is. It's horrifying. But that was my whole thing. I was like, does that mean people in Spain have seen The Room? Those poor people.
Yeah.
I felt so bad when I thought about that. I was like, those poor people. What have we done to them? You know,
it's not that bad. I mean, it's not the level of like Hobgoblins or something really awful. The Apple comes to mind. No, it's. I mean, at least it's so bad it's good. Not so bad it's painful. Like The Final Sacrifice. I'm like,
or Birdemic.
Birdemic is funny. So it's like.
So congratulations to James Franco and the people from The Disaster Artist for winning the Golden Shell at the San Sebastian Film Festival. Onward to Hollywood. Let's see how well you guys do when it comes to the Hollywood crowd.
Ann Thompson predicts he's a dark horse, but still in the running for a possible Best Actor nomination. So we'll see. It hits theaters December 1st and then expands wide 2 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last reel. It is premiere week all week this week on PNR Network sites. We've got brand new episodes of Catastrophe, Vortex, Tuesday Digidex, 3-Minute Weekend, all with revamped sounds and styles and stuff. And also we've got your show will be back a week from Saturday.
My show will be back a week from Saturday. Supernatural Season 13 begins on October 12th with the episode Lost and Found. So I will be back over the weekend with Platinum Rose's Garden looking at that week's episode and whatever else happens to flitter into my mind at the time.
Right. Plus there'll be new episodes of Cavebabble and Comic Grotto, I'm sure, appearing up there. And we also want to remind you to check out our websites all the time, eCinemaOne.com, eCinemaBoston.com, and others, all interconnected on our wondrous PNRNetworks network. You can get to every site and every show on every page because there's a menu over there. We urge you to listen and subscribe to Subject Cinema, and we also urge you to help us out by becoming a Patreon patron. We have one now.
Yes, we do.
And we appreciate that, and we hope that there will be more to come in the near future. Next week on Subject Cinema, we will be doing more crazy stuff as Screen Screams continues.
Yes.
What's our spotlight on the Multivisions next week?
Next week we'll be looking at The Picture of Dorian Gray and the films that have come out about that story and the various views that people have taken of that story.
Okay.
And we hope you'll come back
we
and
were
check
supposed
it
to do
out.
that this week, but we didn't have time to watch it, and we wanted to make sure we get it in. And we'll have, of course, another Deep 13 report and a few other things.
Yep.
And it's all happening next time on Subject Cinema. But for this time, and until then... For Subject Cinema, I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
May your popcorn always be buttered.
And may your roses always be in bloom.
Get ready for Halloween, people.
Candy, 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 candy.
You have been listening to Subject Cinema with hosts T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown. Subject Cinema is produced by PNR Networks, Boston, Massachusetts, which is solely responsible for its content. Subject Cinema theme performed by Eric Lyon. Subject Cinema is recorded and produced using Sony Vegas products. Subject Cinema is copyright 2017 by PNR Networks under a Creative Commons license. Check out a new episode of Subject Cinema every weekend. Until next time, this is Bob Taylor for Subject Cinema, and we'll see you at the movies.
That's all.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.